Good afternoon. So we have about 83 people. We give some few minutes before we start. So just bear with us. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Registrar. Are you ready?
Apologies. I had to do some Usain Bolt to make sure I don't miss this wonderful opportunity by you and great colleagues.
Okay, we understand you are one of the most valued doctor in Ghana, helping us keep in line. And we do appreciate you making time to spend with us. So I think we have 140 people. We can start because your time is so precious. Let me go through a few slides and then we will introduce you. Is that okay, sir?
Very well.
All right. Now, if you have questions, please type them in the question and answer slot. If we can't answer all of them because of time, we will bring him back another time for him to interact with us. I know he would like to. This has been his passion to share with us, and he's revealed a lot to me, so I don't want to spoil his soup. But let's start right now. This is recorded, and we will send a recorded version out for people who couldn't sign on. So my name is Joseph Akamah. I started this program with two junior colleagues who might be able to join today, Ekins and Hillary. They're both house officers working very hard at obstetrics department. The problem was we got a lot of questions about what to do, what should I do, where should I go, and when should I start? So that is how it became a standing program. We did see quite a number of people. Let me bring this program up. Most of you don't know that UGMS is 60 years this year, I think. And I want to congratulate Prof. Margaret Latte for her hard work together with the anniversary planning committee. They are working so hard and we give them all the support. Those of us who are UGMS graduates, please register at www.ugmsaa.org and become an active member. So the program basically serves as a medium through which medical students, MOs, medical officers, residents, and junior specialists could be guided in decision-making regarding professional goals, expose prospective postgraduate trainees to various options they may not have considered, explain and discuss the processes involved in selection of trainees and the training programs, expose prospective graduates, trainees to training directors, college leaders, and examiners, attempt to motivate young doctors by having them meet the achievers on this platform. So the achievers, our registrar here is an achiever. So he's today representing two arms of the program. One, to present himself as an achiever, even though he's so humble, he doesn't know that he's an achiever. We know he's an achiever. So he will present himself, and also he will tell us about his organization's role in training. Counseling advice, which one do you like to use? I believe that if you follow this story, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, teach a man how to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. So advising somebody is just giving him the fish, but we don't want to give you the fish. We want you to be able to enable yourself to go higher. Okay, so that's the purpose of what most of my colleagues who have come on this program have said. And if you like the Bible, you'll know that seek knowledge and ask for help is key. Of course, this is biblical. I don't want to go into the details, but I don't use a superficial aspect of this saying that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And if you go into some of the versions, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I will reject you from serving as my priest. Since you have forgotten the law of God, I will also forget your sons. We have to seek knowledge, not just religious knowledge, but how to lead ourselves into freedom, independence. Where there's no vision, the people perish. So we are hoping that all these leaders will help us understand where we are going. What have we done so far? We've had some achievers. Dr. Zifa Ahadzi told us how she became a cardiology fellow. Dr. Kwesi K. Dakwa trained in Kolebu as an internal medicine specialist and went to US to specialize as an interventional cardiologist. Professor Jonathan Layi is an icon. He's a surgeon, well-revered surgeon in the US, who has mentored a lot of surgeons in Ghana and continues to do so. Our only and only Albert Apalu, you guys know him very well. He is a machine gun. I call him a machine gun. He's my brother. He's taught a lot of us. He's taught a lot of neurologists, not just in Ghana, across the sub-Saharan terrain. He's done a lot. And he brought him back to talk to us about the West Africa College of Physicians. We brought Professor Donko to talk about West Africa College of Surgeons, Professor Deborah to talk about Ghana College of Surgeons, and Dr. Audrey Forson to talk about the Ghana College of Physicians. You notice I have separated them. That is my way of saying there are two organizations who are likely to separate in the future. So I'm doing it now. I'm not saying that they should separate, but I'm just thinking aloud. But then we've had the how to and when to make a move. I talked about how I made my move and how to write a good CV, writing a personal statement. We talked to Professor Richmond Akatu, who's a brother in the US. We talked about Prof. Jeremy Smith, who is also a colleague of mine with chief residents in the US and he is now a professor in Wisconsin who's trying to get Ghanaians and Nigerians into his program. So the program is going to continue. It's not the end. Physicians can be lawyers, okay? Today we're going to meet such a person, a wonderful brother. Physicians can be anatomists, but we're losing that rapidly. The old age is catching up, and the anatomists are no more physicians because we're all becoming doctors and physicians and surgeons. But I think medical officers have the widest opportunity to change their job and get good job satisfaction. You can become a pastor, an owner of a church and make a lot of money. You can become a businessman, a businesswoman, innovators like the people who sell the food supplements, very ingenious young doctors became millionaires. Doctors as house officers, husbands and wives. There's a young doctor who finished and became a housewife, period. That's all she wanted to be. Doctors as farmers, some of our colleagues have won best farmers. So don't just lock yourself in one area. Do not. There are so many opportunities. So without much ado, let me tell about this humble, down-to-earth gentleman. When I met him, I said, "Are you the one?" But he impresses me throughout, and he continues to impress me. His vision, his outlook, initiation of programs is unparalleled. So Dr. Divine Banyubala, he knows how I would have addressed him if we're to be in private. He knows it, so I won't say it. But he knows that whatever it is, even though he's my boss, I'm his chief. Dr. D.N. Banyubala leads the Ghana Medical and Dental Council as an acting registrar. He's a medical doctor by primary training and a legal practitioner. He holds a master's and PhD degree in bioethics and medical jurisprudence from the School of Law, the University of Manchester in the United Kingdom. He has vast expertise in healthcare ethics and law, health policy, professional regulation, ethics, education, research ethics, and ethics governance. If he was to dedicate himself to just academics, he would have been a professor emeritus by now. He's written a lot. He founded and headed Ghana's first medical legal department located in the office of the Director General of Ghana Health Service. This is unparalleled. This is how you can change a system, where he helped to institutionalize ethics and law into healthcare practice and policy. No wonder he's leading all the doctors in this field, and we'll pray for him. He serves as a member of the legal committee of Ministry of Health Ghana. He's a facilitator in health law and ethics for the Ghana chapters of the West Africa College of Surgeons and Physicians. Let me stop this phone from happening. All right, I'll continue with that. I can't stop the phone, but so I'm sorry about that. He's also an adjunct lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Ethical and Legal Issues in Health, and School of Public Health, Ethical and Legal Issues in Health Informatics. He is a member of the legal committee of the Association of Medical Councils of Africa, AMCOA, and has consulted for West Africa Health Organization, WAYO, on national research ethics governance for the West Africa sub-region to facilitate international collaboration and partnership in science and health research. He is a member of the management committee of the Association of Medical Councils of Africa, and he is a board member, okay, of the International Association of Medical Regulatory Authorities. He's a member of the Ghana Medical Association, the Ghana Bar Association, and the International Association by Ethics. He's a senior associate at Law and Development Associate, LAD, and Atubga, an associate law firm in Ghana, Accra. He has, through his vast experience and multiple competencies, consulted and provided facilitation for strategic engagement and policy uptake. He has published widely in both local and international peer-reviewed journals in medical law and ethics, bioethics, and medical jurisprudence. I want us to join hands in welcoming our brother, leader, and acting registrar. Doc, I'm giving you the permission to tell us about yourself and advise us. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for paying attention. I'm going to go off the video and then we'll listen to our acting registrar. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Senior. I didn't know you were going to do this. This was essentially a coup. Knowing that I don't like so much being said about me. I know that what our colleagues would have been used to is to see a formal presentation. And if you please make me go off your video so that I can put on my video and connect, because I'm getting a feedback. Great. Akamah?
Yes. So I'm off.
Yeah.
I'm off. Let me see if I can make you. I made you co-host. So
yes,
let
so
me make you.
I should be able to.
Yes. Try and so you can.
Let me try it now and see. You cannot start your video because the host has.
Okay, I made
stopped
you.
It.
I made you. I made your co-host. Let me see. Co-host. Yes. So try again, please. I'm sorry.
Okay, so let me try now. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much, colleagues. It's an honor and a privilege to share my journey with you this afternoon. Apologies that we could not take it at 12. We had been invited into unplanned emergency meetings, and I had to drag my board chairman along. And then we just barely got through the meeting when I started running in, and I noticed that there was a long distance. But thanks a lot for your kind patience. And I want to commend you and our colleagues, the junior colleagues who came together to put this program together. I think it is the best thing that will happen to our profession in this country. And from a regulatory point of view, we are really proud of those with this wonderful vision. Big bro Akamah and your team, kudos. I will say a lot has already been said about me. I'm going to go through the African model of by the fireside. So I'll tell my story as it is. Then I will spend maybe 10 to 15 minutes just to tell you what, from a regulator's point of view, what we think the future opportunities for postgraduate training should be like, and the role of coaching and mentorship in that process. So as Senior Akamah said, I'm Divine Ndombe Banyubala, a young farmer, an illiterate young farmer's son from Saboba in the northern region, is still in the northern region. I stumbled my way into primary school only because they felt that I was a weakling and couldn't really farm. Those days I was quite, light-skinned, and they thought that given the vagaries of the weather in the north, I didn't look like somebody who could survive. So my father was better off sending me to school. So it was because I was not sufficiently selected by nature to farm in the estimation of those people that I stumbled into school. I mean, even then, being the first son of my father, but the third born, my father was very reluctant because a Kunkuma man's first son is his key person who will inherit all the estates, including all the customs, traditions, and practices and usages under him. It took the persistence of the 3 Catholic priests, one from North America, one from Germany, and one from UK. And my father was still very reluctant. Eventually, I got into school. I cried and cried one day until he had to take me to school. And you get into school, and you are, by the grace of God, not by any special effort on your own, you find that you are doing well or slightly better than the rest of your people. And then you just kept going. So went through the primary school. Those days you stretch your hand to see whether you touch the ear. Of course, I was completely disqualified by that process. But if your uncle, you see why corruption in Africa is complex. If your uncle is a teacher, then you get to evade the rules. Anyway, they tested me and thought that I was quite above average, and yet my hand couldn't reach my ear. So I entered, and those days we didn't have crutches and things like that. So I started class 1, broke my hand the very same year, and I was out for some 3 months through the traditional bone setters. And at that early age, I started having a serious issue about, we don't have doctors. So what if I could one day be a doctor, so that at least my people will not, somebody will not break their hands and not have anybody except the traditional bone setter, whose only mark of when the hands will heal is when they break a chicken's leg and put the chicken in the house. They tell you the day that the chicken runs out, that's the day that your hands is also fixed. It was quite an interesting combination. Anyway, so I went through Sabuba, local authority, primary school, then started middle school, wrote common entrance, passed into Tamasco, but there was St. Charles entrance exam, and the priest there, I was a small boy, Catholic, and then cleaning, the parish there, you go, and these reverend fathers, you go and clean and wash, and also get a good meal to eat in the once in a week or something, and things like that. And I said no. One of the teachers said, no, you are good enough to try your hands on St. Charles entrance exam. And that time, St. Charles Minor Seminary was the best secondary school in the entire northern sector that embodies ecological parts of OT region now, and Bono, and then Bono East, and then, of course, Savannah, Northeast, Northern regions, and then all the way to Upper West, Upper East. It was the best school at the time. So there were special exams. Well, I was fortunate enough to pass in the first instance, and they said I was too little to, my father wouldn't have it. We were too little for independent stay in Tamale from Sabuba at that time. So I had to sit back, and the following year I wrote common entrance and I wrote St. Charles again. I passed both again. I topped my dioceses, and then they said, okay, this time around, the teachers insisted that I was little, but I could live independently. So my father reluctantly agreed. Of course, we got into St. Charles. It was a minor seminary. And so some of us were tipped to be walking on the path of winning souls and healing souls for Jesus Christ. But in the final year, I remember Cardinal Derry came, and they had a fantastic program of counseling young people. And then he wanted to know what my mind was. Of course, in St. Charles, the top 12 or 13 became science students, and the other half of the class became art students. Very few people had the option of choosing either. And I told him that I wasn't quite sure I wanted to be a priest. And it was a big disappointment because I was one of the candidates. So I was not going to be going to the major seminary, but I wanted to go to the sixth form and try to be a doctor because of the early impact of what I felt absence of doctors in my whole hometown area there meant. And so, did well at O level, then you went to A levels at Pope John's. And those days you had the luxury of choosing the school you wanted because, the A level science results were not very great. So when I finished St. Charles, I came to St. Hubert's. I didn't like the school, but I had my grades in my hand. I then continued to Accra and went to the following day. I continued to Cape Coast, went to check on St. Augustine's, and I didn't like the school very much. Then I came back and took a vehicle headed to Koforidua to check on Pope John and St. Peter's. And when I went to Pope John's, I liked the school. And then I presented my result slip, and then Reverend Father Beck says, okay, you are admitted. And things like that. But these days, people, you must know somebody, and things like that. And those are the values that we'll be looking at. So I came over and we did justify your inclusion at Kolebu here, and I got into medical school. And that is it. Somewhere along the medical school, of course, I was very active in my church activities. I debated for the medical school, and I'm happy to indicate that the time that I've left the debating team, we have won. We entered part of the association issues, got strong participation in the international federations activities. I was part of YCS. And all of these things are important leadership development opportunities for us as a people, so that you are not just in the medical school, because those of us who are still in medical school, we don't just fixated on just anatomy, physiology, things like that, and going to the clinic, but the social life, there are opportunities for you to explore other things. I participated in YCS activities, Pax Romana activities at the highest levels, and things right through the processes. And therefore, it was not difficult to assume leadership in the class, and then evidently became the leaders of junior doctors, and then got to influence the creation of, in fact, it was my time that I made a recommendation to the mother GMA when tensions were high, we're going on strike for ADHA and losing confidence, that we should create an opportunity for junior doctors to be part of the council. And so I think because I suggested it and it was my turn, we were only 2 medical schools at the time. So I suggested that the leader of junior doctors in Komfonachi should be the first person to go or to take that. I'm happy that the association accepted that. And I think it must have been the current president who was then the leader of the junior doctors in Komfonachi who then got in there. And then the year after was when Soji, their batch was behind us. He got the opportunity. So advocacy is important, and it helped to shape the profession very well. And I went on to serve as secretary to the Professional Association at Greater Accra, and of course became a co-opted member of the National Executive when we're dealing with strike actions and conditions of service issues. Once I finished my house job and went into the leadership, I then migrated into, I started questioning, it was around the 5th year that I started questioning whether there wasn't more to clinical practice, because I saw that sometimes the way some consultants reacted to patients was a bit concerning, and the way some patient information was treated. And I was curious about, couldn't we do better? I see some consultants and they are very calm. So what is it that is making this one calm? That stumbled, and through my own reading, I got to discover that there was a whole program called Medical Ethics and Law that medical practitioners, regulatory bodies, and medical schools were required to have in the West. And we hadn't even heard. And I remember that our last lecture, we had 2 hours of a lecture. They said it was going to be ethics. And when we went, it was a lecture on, dying, something and dying, And then it turned out to be clinical psychology lecture rather than an ethics lecture. So my interest started there, and I went to see my consultants, my mentors, the late Emeritus Professor Bedu, and others. And then I went to talk with Dr. Annan at the time. And then I went to talk with Professor Fumpom Boateng. And then later on, he became the chief executive officer. And nobody had clarity. Then I went around to find out that those courses were offered in the West. And nobody was ready to fund me. But we had strike action situations when I left as an executive member of the association. And I was able to benefit from the leadership experience that I had. So we're able to resolve those issues, and that helped a lot. So at that point, people started recognizing that there's something unique about this person, and could we give them an opportunity? And that is important because as a young person rising, stick to values, stick to principles, and in all of it, do so respectfully and with humility. And once you do that, the grace of God will be sufficient. The grace of God will be sufficient. And that is how I stumbled into the ethics and law. So eventually, the occurrence of circumstances, I remember 2005 when we went on the National Strike Action GMA. I was one of those who were part of the technical team to engage His Excellency President Kufuor's government. And then we had done sufficient background work and were able to advocate and appeal. And I think those matters became clear in the ministry that we needed somebody with competencies in ethics. And then I had said that, look, I have this opportunity. I got an admission. Somehow the letters came, they were hidden from me for 8 months. And a cleaner in the hospital found them somewhere hidden. And that is why it's an important lesson as young people. We work in a healthcare setting. Be nice to everybody, including the cleaner. Be nice to everybody, including the cleaner. If you respect all the other colleagues within the healthcare space, it just makes you better, not weaker. Then the following year, I applied now, I became wise, and I decided to open my own private box. And I sent the application, and this time to 3 universities, and they all admitted me one more time. And I had the luxury to choose between Edinburgh, King's College, Middlesex, and actually Manchester, which one I wanted to go. And I chose to go to Manchester to do the master's in healthcare ethics and law. And I'm happy to indicate that the minister at that time was very supportive, the late College Kochigana. And then they said, look, it's an important cause. The president at the time said, look, we needed that because he had experience in the West, and you cannot have a healthcare system without somebody who knows something about ethics and law. So I went to do the master's in ethics and law in 2006. I had to suspend my residency training in ENT. And unfortunately, it didn't go down well because some people felt that ethics was not part at all of medical practice. And then there were attempts actually made, formal attempts made to make sure that I don't travel out. I was doing my residency with both Ghana College. I've seen somebody's hand up. Let me check and see whose hand is up so that we can have the conversation. So Alexander, yes. So if you can, please let Alexander ask. You can please ask your question. Let me see what is in the chat. Alex, you can let us see whether you'll be unmuted. I haven't seen any message from you yet.
Yeah, he can send a message. He can send a message.
So please send a message. Yeah, so
Okay.
send a message
Alexander,
and let me.
Is it Alexander?
Yeah.
There are two Alexanders. There's Alexander Owusu and then Alexander Owusu. Is it the same person? Alex Owusu and
I
Alexander.
suspect the same person is using different access points.
Okay. So he can
Yeah.
speak. I've allowed
So
him
please,
to speak.
yeah. So please allow Alexander to speak and let's see.
Alex.
Alexander Usu, or maybe it was accidental. So let's carry on. All right.
It was accidental, sir.
Oh,
All
great.
right.
Okay. So there were attempts made. I wrote to West African College because I was a resident in both colleges of Ghana and West Africa. But at that time, the West Africa College was excited and they said I should go interrupt my program and come back. The Ghana College, they took a different view and there were attempts to stop me from going. But of course, the system also recognized the importance of having somebody with ethics and law background. So I went, and it was because I also had senior colleagues, people who had taught me, who understood the value of ethics because they had gotten that in a different context before coming. And the Director General at the time, I think, was Professor Kosa, Ajman Bedo Akosa. And he thought that, look, this is an important course and you must do it and come back and come and assist us. So even though I was funded and I was expected to be bonded, he just said, I know you as my student, I trust you, and I'm not going to let the HR bond you. I know you will come back. In fact, when I went back, after the year, we merged as top student of the cohort. I was offered a fully funded PhD program to continue to do my medical PhD in medical law and ethics on British scholarship. But I declined and came home because my commitment was to come back and set up a medical legal department in the Ministry of Health to help institutionalize ethics in Ghana. So I declined and I came back in 2007. And by 2008, the financial crisis hit. So the school wrote back to me and said, well, even though we offered you open scholarship and admission, the admission is still open, but the scholarship will no longer have money. But I set up the system and I ran it and I wanted it to be institutionalized. So I spoke with the new DG at the time and other colleagues trying to bring in people to support the department. And of course, I declined politely to have the department hosted in the ministry because at that time I wanted to move away from unnecessary political interference. And therefore I came to the service and located it in the office of the Director General. Then it soon became clear that in Ghana, the separation between solicitor and barrister, and no matter your knowledge in medical law issues, you will not be a doctor, a lawyer, properly so called. So you needed to go to law school. So then I decided that, look, why not? I'll do the LLB alongside whilst I was setting up this system. And that time was still providing a little bit of clinical services because it was a difficulty moving away. But given the circumstances of my moving out to go and do the program, because people wanted to stop me and felt that it had no relationship with ENT surgical practice. And when I got there, I realized that was my motivation to go on and do a PhD, because I realized that there was a big problem. Because if people who are responsible for training doctors at the postgraduate level, okay, did not recognize that ethics is an integral part of medicine, then that is the reason why Ghana needed the expertise in that area. And if you read the foreword to my thesis, I provide a much more clear conviction of that. Yes, my sister, even when I got admission, people wanted to make sure that I don't go. Different parts of the same system pulling against themselves. But that is, the issue is that you don't reflect it as if it was done out of malice. That is never my disposition. I felt that it was done as a result of insufficient understanding, something I call ignorance. And for us scientists, we know when you are ignorant, it's not an insult. If you are ignorant, it's not an insult. I've seen Fafa is telling me that the mic is low, so I try and speak up. It's not an insult, and there's a whole book on ignorance. And I got into that book when I was doing a review of a book for Medical Law International Journal. And then when I saw that, it helped me to be able to provide an important perspective. So I've always seen ignorance and blue science, sky science research as the route to discovery. It is what you have found. It's almost like looking for a black cat in a dark room, no light. Then only to stumble and pick up a phone. And after all, at the end of it, you realize that there was no black cat in the first place, but you didn't set out to find a phone. Okay, you stumbled upon a phone as a result of your attempt to reduce your ignorance of what was in that dark space. And that is how, as scientists, we should operate. So always have an open mind and have a willingness to continue to learn, and you'll be amazed what you can do. So I did the LLB here, and when I finished the LLB with the master's now, I got admission directly into the law school. Those days, we didn't have to do the entrance exam. But then my PhD had been outstanding for 4 years, and my whole object was to come back, establish the medical legal department, and begin to make it count in health policy and healthcare practice. And at that time, when I came, I became the resource person for Medical and Dental Council at the time in 2008. And those of you who were already registered practitioners, you recall that there were regional ethics and law events, and I was the lead facilitator in ethics and professional conduct issues. And I had convinced the council the importance of making ethics and law a registration, a CPD requirement. Of course, it came with a lot of resistance from our own colleagues, but eventually it is here, and we are the greatest beneficiaries of it. So I went back at the end of 2011. And then, but before then, I brought in my senior and colleague, both in medicine and law, Dr. Emmanuel Maurice Ankra. So I worked with him for about 1.5 years, and then I handed over the department to him and left. And then when I came back, the ministry had too many issues to deal with. They wanted me to come back to the ministry, but I was still hesitant because of unbridled political intrusion. So I wanted us to affect policy and practice where it mattered and not be constrained by political interference. When you are a technocrat to a certain level, it becomes a difficult thing to manage. But then the board, because I had worked with the board from 2008 all the way to end of 2011, when I left for the PhD program. So when I came back, the board said they needed, because there were too many complex issues that were coming up. And then they had advertised the deputy registrar position, but practitioners that came through were not found sufficiently suitable. And so they came to see the minister and the director general then to release me to come as a deputy registrar. And then I did that, and I had to combine that to come back and do my professional program. But then they told me, you now have to write an entrance exam. And we did. I had to go back and learn LLB stuff that I had left 4 years prior. So I finished that, and I could now be called a solicitor and barrister of the Supreme Court of Ghana. Then I got in here into regulation, but of course I've been engaged in policy from 2008, directly from 2008 all the way to 2011. So that is what eventually landed me here. So the first question I remember at the interview at the law school, one of the professors was very unhappy because he said, you have LLB, you have, you had a master's in medical law and ethics, and you wanted us to take you to do LLB. Why? Instead of going to your hometown to practice medicine and things like that. And it didn't take more than 2 minutes for him to be, spoken to nicely that what he was saying in simple terms did not make sufficient intellectual sense. Because the first, and then, after that, we became the best of friends. So in order to pacify them, I elected to do the LLB program as on part-time basis so that I can still be doing my office work and then consulting and coming to do the program. So it has been like that. But you see, the point I'm trying to make is that there are different opportunities. This context may not have grown to reflect those specialty areas. And therefore, we are looking at just lawyers that we are also having doctors who are at NASA. There are doctors who are aviation medicine specialists. There are doctors into sports medicine and others. So it's not just the traditional disciplines that we are comfortable with, that we should be focusing. And this is to let you know that any new, well-informed path that you chart, if people are uncertain or not sufficiently informed about it, it is a natural reaction that they may be hesitant. But don't interpret the hesitancy to mean malice. As a young person who understands what the future is, who can envision, try to explain to them why that opportunity might actually be complementary and might actually strengthen rather than weaken because the reaction of not allowing me to go, when I came back, there was a program to be run, which is MSc in audiology, funded by an international agency for the University of Ghana. And one of the requirements of the funders was that ethics must be taught as part of the health, because elsewhere, all healthcare programs, you must have ethics. Now, my head at the time had to come to the office in Ghana Health Service to appeal to me to accept, because they have gone everywhere and they said that if they have to come and see me to teach that course. And if I didn't accept to be on it, they won't get accreditation for the program. Of course, I accepted and I did it for free. And they got accreditation for the program. And I then later on left to go and do my PhD program. So there's no reason, to believe that that senior colleague of ours did not recognize the value. In fact, when he called me, I said, well, I'll come. He said, no. I said, Prof, I'll come. He said, no, I'll come and see you. And for me, that is an important contribution. So largely, that is how I stumbled into this business of ethics. But I'll tell you, I'm recruiting people for the agency, and I'm coming to say 5 minutes or so about the medical and dental council and focus on where the new thinking is for the postgraduate education. I must say that, I see a question here. Let me just go through it. This is from Luke. And he's saying, sir, how did you explain? Oh, don't call me, sir. Just call me divine or, colleague. How did you explain to the interviewer to believe that it was necessary for them to admit you, and that being a medical doctor doesn't mean that you must work in the hospital? Absolutely. I actually explained to him that just like legal practice, there are different aspects to medical practice as well. And clinical practice is just one component of it. For example, and I told him that, for example, it would be naive for anybody to think that he being present there and not in his village somewhere in the Volta region at the time, practicing law and going to court, does not mean that he's not a lawyer and not involved in legal practice, where you are training the next generation. And he has trained generations and generations of us as lawyers. And those people have been in different areas of work. And if we understand law to be the cement of society, then medicine itself cannot escape from the reach of law. Neither can any medical professional. And therefore, we are looking at the law as it applies to medicine. And the best placed person is the person who understands medicine to start with. And the rest of them agreed. And so just to ensure that we pacified him, we agreed that I told them that I didn't have any problem at all. I'll go on part-time rather than do full-time. So I have several classmates, the ones that I started with the LLB, I was supposed to do it 2 years, I did 3 years. So I had 2 generations of classmates at that level, which turned out to be great network for me. The second thing is that because I interrupted to do the PhD and came back, and then had another set of classmates at Makola level. And in the end, it was an enriching experience. Now, when, of course, I've been involved in policy, in facilitation at the center of government, and my experience, in fact, it was under our leadership, and Senior Soga was a wonderful mentor, and Professor Dijen Fienko, Dr. Edua Bebienko, the late Pranj Drew, they were so encouraged. They mentored and encouraged us as young persons who were fighting. But as a young leader at the time, we wanted facts. And I remember when we wanted to make a case for the health sector salary structure, Austin Game had just started, and we used our money to engage his expertise. And I told our association and then the president that, look, we are doctors, we are not labor experts. So let us go to school before we go and make a mess of ourselves in any negotiation on these salary things. So we went, we took our money, paid an hourly rate of $100. So instead of using the fees we do to just make kebab and a year ending and come and eat, let us go and get education, because the burning issue at the time was our conditions of service, our salary scales, and looking from the original A scale and the various modifications of the A scale all the way to the Ghana Universal Salary Structure, and where we thought that doctors were being shortchanged and the relativities that were being distorted by some elements within the system. And when we saw that there was people were converting our pharmacists and nursing and allied health professional colleagues were converting the whole thing into a career popularity contest. Of course, when we talked to GMA at the time, they didn't respond quickly enough. And now you now see that they introduce all kinds of programs to call doctor, then to claim that they are now all the same. In fact, there were claims that we all do the same work, so we should be paid the same amount of money, things like that, and negotiations. So we paid $100 per hour for 6 hours. And I think he gave us a discount of 20% or something like that. And we got the information. And when we came to do our job evaluation and we pushed for the health salary structure, we were able to make a good claim. And we had committed ourselves that we should not go back to any universal salary structure. And doctors should be aiming to move on to the salary structure for essential service providers, which will be GRA, ECG, police, military, and SEPs, immigrant, everybody. Unfortunately for us, we left, a lot of things happened, and we came back to a single spine pay policy with the same, it's not different from the Ghana's universal salary structure. And so you're going to have the same problems. So some of us are not worried at all, that not surprised at all that these concerns have come. But it's something that I will encourage all of us here who get into And I encourage some of you to get into professional leadership positions, that you work to ensure at least doctors at a certain level retire on their salaries. And the salaries are not much if you consider only the basic monthly salaries. Yes, so I've seen a beautiful question here. I was going to, I'll touch on, let me take the question and touch on that. Please, what advice will you give a doctor who specialized outside and did a specialty, not yet, okay, I think meant not yet recognized by the Ghana and West African colleges, and therefore has difficulty in registering it? What I can assure you is that, and I'll tell you this, you may get into certain circumstances when you do a knowledge acquisition exercise, a skills acquisition exercise. It's not necessarily for somebody to recognize you in a special way. It's for you to improve your value and the value of the contribution you can make to solving societal problems. It's not like we do largely in Africa. I'm looking for publication to just get promotion to professor. So whether the publication, it doesn't matter the value of the publication. But elsewhere, they look at the value of the publication. It may just be one paper that will make you a Nobel Prize laureate. That will give you a chair as professor in Oxford or Manchester or Cambridge or MIT or Yale or something. But for us, you know, you can go and do all kinds of things. How many times people smile a day and the impact of that on their aging, this thing, and then you publish it. It may be useful. The point I'm trying to make is that currently you will understand that we have established a specialist register. It's very unlikely that a specialization you have done will not be recognized, or subspecialty area will not be recognized by us, because we have done the specialist register. Remember that I sit as part of the International Association of Medical Regulatory Authorities, where we have the Canadian regulator, the Federal States Medical Board, the CEO, the General Medical Council, UK, the Australian regulator, the New Zealand, Indonesian, Malaysian, Indian. Then in Africa, we have Kenyan, who represents Africa, and I represent the world at large on that board. So we share quite a number of things, and we will encourage you that if it is not recognized today, like mine wasn't, tomorrow it will be recognized. As I sit here, medical PhD in bioethics and medical jurisprudence or medical law and ethics is not a specialty in medicine. It doesn't diminish the contribution I make to medical professional regulation, training, and practice standards. In fact, that is what is required in today's regulators. And so don't be too worried about whether or not it is recognized by the college. Once it allows you to function better, but over time, it will catch up. I don't believe in revolutions. I believe in as a related evolution. Let me see, there were.
Yeah, there is another one, Registrar.
Yes.
There is another question by YT. What advice is linked with what you just answered, but I just read it for you. What advice will you give young doctors who want to specialize in areas not yet offered by either the Ghana or West Africa College? And then second question is, what is MDC's stance on specializing outside? So you touch on
Excellent.
it.
I'll touch it. So that will lead us into what we do. So first thing is that go for it, my brother. Go for it, my sister. Go for it, my colleague. Because tomorrow will not wait for today's clarity. It will not. So, like, I wasn't discouraged. I continued. When I found out that we couldn't do the program here, I continued to persist. And people did not think that it was something that was necessary even at the level of senior trainers. And so it's important that once you are convinced and it's a new discipline, we are at different levels of growth as people and as nations. It will catch up, but your expertise will receive international recognition. I declined, let me tell you, the last bit I didn't tell you is that when I went back to do my PhD, it was meant to be 3 to 4 years. Okay, I finished my PhD in 2.5 years. It took me 6 months to get it examined because the person they wanted, my supervisors wanted to examine my thesis. Himself was a foremost expert in medical law and ethics from Edinburgh, and he had been encumbered in so many ways. So it delayed. Eventually, I mean, they had to bring in an additional examiner to make sure that I was examined. And that is very important. I got 2 offers of 2 jobs before I defended my thesis. Okay. By the time I was ready to defend my thesis, I got an additional 2 offers. So I had 4 offers. The world recognized the value. We attended International Association of Bioethics meeting in Mexico City. And there was a difficulty, and that was my first meeting. And once you make the contribution, they will recognize the value. Those who are ignorantly undervaluing it, don't worry about it because you are not trained for Ghana. You are training to serve humanity, the world. We are not competing locally. So that is why, as a council, we are looking for local quality for global competitiveness. So the council has taken a strategic view and will be inviting, there's a concept paper that has been drawn. The first thing is that how many of us knew that the Medical and Dental Council is 50 years this year? And as part of the Golden Jubilee things, the council in the last 4 years has been on the path of innovation, progress, reforms. And some of the reforms, you may have seen them in the media, but our clear focus has been that we need to improve upon, I'm seeing some, let me answer this. Penyin is saying, it is imperative, and I'm excited of your desire to engage the diaspora in the subspecialty training of doctors. We look forward to a formal engagement. This collaboration will increase the subspecialties available in the country. Okay, so that brings me to the point I was going to make. Then Richard is saying that I wanted to ask how the MDC exams for foreign trained graduates writing this for will be structured, because there has been an update on the MDC's website which states a different structure being included. Okay, so the first one is that we issued a policy advisory in 2018. Following our visit, we led Parliamentary Select Committee on Health, and we visited medical schools in Russia and China in 2017. And we found out clearly that a lot of our compatriots had not, in fact, they finished medical school without touching a patient. In fact, if you met them, I think over 80% of them will tell you they have not even observed a normal birth. I'm not talking about being assisted. Just to observe a normal birth in China or Ukraine, they haven't. And therefore, one of the policy proposals amongst a number was to move from the multiple choice, problem solving, and just the oral exam to clinical exam. And the world is moving forward in terms of medical instruction and the best way to assess competencies. And most of us are adopting the objective structured clinical examination modality. And we even started in 2019 engagements with the deans and provost of the medical universities and colleges and schools towards harmonizing our training curricula, which we are going to continue this year, towards a common national licensing exam by 2025. So this February, we were supposed to start the objective structured clinical examination, but we are not ready because the board came in very late last year in September. And so it didn't leave us sufficient time to be able to prepare. We are hoping that by June, the objective structured examinations would take place for foreign trained. And we are working to ensure that by 2025, whether you finish in Ghana or outside Ghana, that is the current regulatory best practice. You write a common licensing examination so that issues of having a two-tier quality control mechanism or accusations of discrimination would disappear. Now, the diasporan comment that I read from my sister, Teresa Finn, had to do with part of the reforms we are looking at. And we have been engaging aggressively the college in the last 2 years. We formed an ad hoc subcommittee, which has delivered a draft conceptual framework. And our focus here has been that 50 years down the line, when we had university, we have Ghana Medical School. We don't have a University of Ghana Medical School. We had Ghana Medical School when it started in 1962. Having done that for 50 years as a professional regulator, it thought that it is time to reflect on the training, local training since then, and then beyond. What next? Now, we are also aware that not much has changed in terms of resources at the level of specialty training, at the level of basic sciences and paraclinicals in particular. So we have considered a number of ways of boosting local production because we have a multitude of our people also, because of the limited local training opportunities, living in droves to China, Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, getting less than an ideal medical education. In fact, dangerous, in most cases, medical education, and becoming a public nuisance, if not risk, to the policymaker, the political actor, to the institutions that are supposed to regulate and control standards, and becoming a social concern. So those monies are capital flights. And we have come to the conclusion that you cannot also increase undergraduate medical training with that commensurate increase in the number of specialists and subspecialists in the system. And therefore, our engagement is with the college, and we are hoping to decentralize medical education, training and practice at both undergraduate and specialist level. There's no reason why all regional hospitals cannot be centers for clinical clerkships for residents and then medical students. But that will require a policy shift, a commitment to put investment. For example, a low-hanging fruit is investing in infrastructure, equipment, and logistics for basic sciences and paraclinicals. Medium-term engagements are what have yielded and some results. Members should be able to come into medical schools as lecturers, and then fellows at least as senior lecturers. And I think that Legon has eventually provided that. Some of the other universities were doing that, but Legon had been hesitant, and that has been done. The thinking is that if a member in surgery, for example, can do an MSc or MPhil in anatomy, from a professional regulatory perspective, we have had pure scientists teaching these basic sciences subjects, and it's creating a problem of understanding. We need applied anatomy, relevant to medicine, not frog leg. physiology of ionic exchanges in a total, like you get PhD, you are published, eminent professor in your own right, but it does not make you the ideal person to train somebody who is dealing with human anatomy. And if you just went to do some brain cells, human anatomy to a high level, it doesn't, from the regulatory point of view, there are gaps in knowledge when those things appear. So we came to the conclusion that if we got that for our medical doctors, we can easily increase the faculty strength. But the huge resource which remains untapped or insufficiently tapped, because the council has been engaging with our colleagues, Dr. Finn's comment from the Ghana Physicians and Surgeons Foundation of North America, a well-organized group with colleagues who have been in the US and are quite high levels of specialists and sub-specialist competencies and skills, and are even, people with big budgets, okay, for research related issues and others in the US there, and in the UK and elsewhere in the world. We can make all of them adjunct faculties to our various medical universities, especially at the level of subspecialty training, specialty training, and then the basic and paraclinical sciences level. And they can, COVID has shown us that they will be able to deliver those support and lectures without necessarily coming down here. So those are the considerations. So we are hoping that we require 2-year house job for the time being. It's not likely to change, but there's likely to be flexibility if the policy proposal is achieved. And we are saying that we can look at our house officers at the end of the first year house job. If somebody is interested in, for example, an orphan discipline, like chemical pathology or anesthesia or psychiatry, it's possible for us to make sure that their third rotation is in that area where they want to specialize in, and prepare the person so that at the end of that third rotation, they take the primary exam in anesthesia or in chemical pathology. And once they are successful, then they enter the training program, okay, before the commencement of their fourth rotation. And then they will progress through the program. There are also ideas that we should consider maybe top 10 or top 15% of all the candidates in every year, and then get to know what they want to do. And once those ones come, we don't allow them to exit through membership. So they will do membership, but you not allow them to exit, and you move them straight to fellows. Because if you have we have created membership, which is an important public policy consideration as an exit grade, but it's not terminal in professional training. And if you don't take time, you have half-baked specialists over time, with all due respect from a professional perspective. And therefore, it's important that to be able to train the next generation of doctors at various levels, both undergraduate and specialists. Once you find those who are willing and happy to do that, you support them so that they can fast track their training and they do a comprehensive program. There are other arrangements for some disciplines, especially around surgery, to have direct entry programs so that to be an orthopedic surgeon or neurosurgeon, you may avoid certain modules so that we can have a straightforward program which will be shorter. There are conversations about us even looking at, because medical schools have been sort of, will I say, outmuscled by the general, lost in the general university space, such that the deans we have found do not have enough administrative and financial authority to deal with issues. Therefore, there's the thinking that if they don't accept that senior lecturers, fellows can come as senior lecturers, and we are thinking about giving also our fellows and members opportunity to do twin degrees of MPhil and membership, a PhD and fellowship. That's one solution. One other option is to make the case for separate standalone medical universities. After all, it was Ghana Medical School, and it has shown over the 5 decades that we have been training people locally that our products are on the top end. Outliers when it comes to competencies and skills when they go out. And that is why the West are attracting them. The British government has put £100 million budget because of the twin effects of Brexit and COVID to attract healthcare workers, targeting nurses and doctors in particular. The US is doing same, and I can tell you the number of certificates of good standing have been standing in the last 2 years are shocking. And therefore, these things are happening. So we have a competitive advantage of having local quality. We don't want to also dilute it. So you want to increase, boost local production in a responsible manner, such that the quality is not undermined by your quest to produce anything, so that we don't come up with half-baked doctors, like some head of state thought that you could train doctors halfway. A half-trained doctor is a dangerous murderer with license in the hand. And from our perspective, we are not going to likely accept that. So there are a number of things that we'll be calling a conference in the next 3 or so months, and all stakeholders will be present to see ways of doing that. In fact, we are even having conversations apart from the graduate entry medical programs that we have. It's possible to tweak the medical curriculum through the harmonization process so that we'll reduce it from 6 years to 5 years. These are all ways of trying to improve, opportunities for training and also for shorten specialist training processes. Let me pick a few questions. I've seen Kevin, who says, with regards to specialization, there are colleagues who have finished their MBBS in countries like China and, sorry, it's gone too far. Okay, countries like China and Russia, who go on to do a master's in surgery, internal medicine, among other programs. And I'm trying to get the panel to move a bit. Okay, let me see. What is the pathway for such a doctor per MDC's regulation in Ghana? We have a credentials committee. So if you specialize outside, our law requires, and internationally, that is the best requirement, is that if you come and you say you are a specialist, you should have been finished a training program, passed the exit examination, terminal examination for that program, be licensed as such in the country of, or you must have been registered and licensed. So you cannot come as a specialist from UK in obstetrics and gynecology. How did you become a specialist in obs and gynae unless you were licensed to be able to train and then also practice that specialty? So that specialty must be registered and licensed in the country of origin. That's what the rules says. Based upon our history, we have also recognized that there are some arrangements where it is government to government, and they tell you that if you go and you specialize, you cannot practice in that country. So what we have tried, how we have tried to be fair in that situation is to say that at least it should have been registrable. But a lot of these participants who go there, our colleagues who go and do direct, first, we don't advise because the specialist training programs are bad. Second, if you have to, then that qualification must be registrable or have been registered there. Nobody becomes a specialist from nothing in medicine. And those are the considerations. So when you come here, we will look at it. We have a credentials committee, very experienced people who understand how the various certificates, qualifications across the globe are, and then they will assess what it is and determine first, is it a specialist qualification at all? If it's not specialist level, go. If it is specialist level, because we now have 2 tiers of specialists in Ghana, the committee has to go further to determine whether it is at the level of membership or it's at the level of fellowship. And then a decision is made, we write to you. You appear, sometimes you will be invited to come and defend that. And then we will communicate that appropriately. But there are times that people have been allowed to be examined and they have found that they need 2 years supervised training before they can be independently registered as such. Now, I've seen something about writing foreign professional medical examination requires your training institution to be recognized by council. Trainees from the new medical schools like UHAS are unable to write this exam because they are not on the list. Yes, they are not on the list of those institutions. So I want to get to the end of that question because the list has not yet been updated. That is true. At the level of international regulators, we have talked about this. We have had World Council of Medical Schools. We have the WHO list. We have the verification through ECFMG, which is the US regulatory body that deals with the credentialing assessment and things like that for foreign examinations for foreign trained students. We are required to recognize you, and that's why we traveled outside. But you use multiple instruments to try to ensure that you don't unnecessarily and unfairly exclude somebody. The mere fact that we have gone to China, but we are not able to go to all the 41 medical schools accredited to be training in the Chinese medium. Should that be sufficient basis, our inability to inspect or be reasons why we shouldn't recognize that? So we use multiple instruments to be able to come to that decision. As we speak now, another inspection program is being planned for China in particular, because the number of English medium training institutions keeps falling every year because of concerns about standards, even by the Chinese government. There is a question here from K. Inshra. Says, please, will there be an open format how the exam will be for the June-October exams for foreign training exams and the subsequent years to come? Yes, it's an objective structured exam. We have core curriculum, and so we will indicate what you are expected to have known as a doctor trained anywhere in the world if it is properly, constituted training institution. And so there are no surprises. Remember that this notice was given since 2018. After we visited, we had a complete policy brief advising the Ministry of Health on the things that we think at that government level they should be doing, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the things that they should be doing, and then the Ministry of Education. Please, this is Prosper. Please, can we get the recordings after the meeting? I think that is the host will answer that. Now, Kizdak, I don't know who that is, but considering how insightful this webinar has been, I suggest MDC holds such webinars very regularly. There are several things that a lot of doctors learn only after being in the field after school. Absolutely right. In fact, the good thing is that I've been in touch with the GMA, and then I've made it my commitment to have, as part of our yearly conferences, to have an evening with the registrar where we will bring to you the policy considerations, the life issues, even the disciplinary cases that are coming before us. We are beginning to see that issues of sexual harassment, sexual assault, and accusations of rape are beginning to take center stage. And we think that as a professional association, GMA and the regulator, we should be taking interest in how to properly guide professionals in that matter. So the Samuel here says, dear sir, I think the clarification from the registrar with regards to the new licensing examination policy for foreign trained doctors should be communicated to those preparing to for the February exams. Those preparing for the February exams know that it's going to be the old standard. If we haven't communicated a change, it means that a change is not due. You don't want to provide confusing communication. So once we finish and we are conducting the February exam, we will issue a notice for those who will be doing in June when we are satisfied that we'll be able to start in June.
Registrar, I know
yes.
Your time is very precious. You've been able to hold over 500 people throughout 1.5 hours. Do you have time to continue? But before you answer, I have an important question posted by
Yes.
an anonymous attendee. Please, sir, is there a paid maternity leave for our female colleagues during house job? If there is, kindly outline the process involved. I think this is an important question.
Oh, this is important. Thank you very much. I have time because I've dedicated this afternoon to, because of the value of the program. So as long as it is okay with the, you give us a signal as to how far we can go on as the host. But I think that in the next 30 minutes, I'm available to be able to hold the meeting and clarify things. The first thing is that the house job salary is 24 months. 24 months. So it terminates at the end of the 24 months. Now, when you have interrupt your house job for whatever reason, and you are not working, you'll be paid. But when you come to finish, and it's, unless there are special circumstances, the additional 4 months or 6 months you do, because you were not working and you were being paid, when you work for those months, you will not get payment. So that is how, because it is part of the career progression, it terminates every 24 months. And therefore, your house job is mandatory for 2 years. We had to come to that conclusion because we didn't want employers to say that if you are a house officer, we have to give you put you on probation so you can't get pregnant, you can't do this. We already know that we spend too much time in school and we finish late. So it was a way of making sure that we meet both parties halfway to ensure that you'll be paid whilst you are on maternity. But when you come back and you work, you will not get payment for the period that you were away. So that is how the current payment scheduling is. There is somebody here who says, to settle several uncertainties each time pre-licentiate exam is closed, I suggest an orientation be held for prospective candidates. That is a very well made point. We used to do that. My dear friend, we used to do that, but we stopped it. You know why? First, candidates misconstrued it to be that you are coming to get a PO or filler. We don't have to. If you go to US to do USMLE, there's nobody who calls you for orientation. You say you are a doctor, you want to come, prepare and come. The same thing if you go to do PLAB 1 and 2. But we said that because of the peculiar circumstances, we will bring them together, explain to them what the requirements are and things like that. And it was good. Then the accusations that those you went and then they said this, and then we're expecting to see questions. So we stopped it for very serious policy reasons. As a regulator, we didn't want to be our reputation to be dimmed. And I must indicate with all humility that at the international level, the reputation of this regulator is extremely high. It is the reason why our colleagues in the sub-region will elect to come and do 2-year house job here, even though some of them, their home countries, that's 1 year, and transfer onto a permanent register before they leave to UK or US. So those are very important considerations. We used to do that, but we stopped because of the problems that it presented. So here said, what will the student whose university is not captured? I've already indicated that. Somebody said, good evening, Divine. Thank you for the presentation. Please, I wanted to know why our junior colleagues who graduated from US as far back as September last year are still at home. Are still at home. Let me try together. Anyway, what has happened is that I'm not sure whether it was in September you has graduated, but I think that they graduated, were expected, they were available for induction, and we're hoping to be able to induct that group in December. That is not only UHAS, but Family College graduated their first batch. Accra College graduated their first batch. UG had their candidates graduated. towards the end of the year, and UCC. So this group of candidates are going to be inducted sometime this month, actually in 2 weeks' time. And those who are responsible know that they have already received communication and they are being registered for the induction and prepared for that. So the inductions will happen in 2 weeks. Hello, sir. Don't you think the number of recognized hospitals for housemanship training is not enough? Absolutely, we agree with you. We have been working to expand the schools, but it's a collective effort between all stakeholders, the college, the council, CHAG, Ghana Health Service, teaching hospitals, and private practices. And we are working on that. As we speak now, we have just been in conversation to next week go on an accreditation visit to get some additional training opportunities. And the rule is to keep first year house officers in a teaching level hospital and then second years in the districts when they do not fit some of the innovations that we are thinking about. Like I told you, if you are interested, if we agree to facilitate postgraduate training, then the third rotations may then be suited into the discipline where you want to specialize. So please, what way forward with physician assistant training in the country concerning the thought that we are gradually getting a number of doctors to main facilities. In fact, we just had a meeting. It's part of the emergency meeting we held, conversations we held with the minister today. And one of the things is that they are middle level cadre. And by the philosophy and the central guiding principle is that physician assistants are supposed to fill in the gap where there are not enough physicians. They are supposed, for the medical group, they are trained for the sub-district level as sub-district heads, the health centers, that's where they're supposed to be. And then they'll be providing supportive supervision to CHIPS zones and CHIP compounds. And where there are CHIPS compound, to the community health officers who will be there, together with the volunteers and community health management teams. That's where they were. But most of them have come into teaching hospitals, regional hospitals, district hospitals, and we are losing focus. And to get to universal health coverage, we need to refocus the sub-district so that that gap between the community health component, which is CHIPS strategy, and then district hospitals are being strengthened, like you said. In terms of the anesthesia group, other thinking is coming for us to introduce diploma in anesthesia, and we are encouraging young colleagues, as many of you as are willing, to get into that program. We're working to see how we can facilitate funding, okay, from the scholarship secretariat, so that you will be given a training program as a master's program, level program called Diploma in Anesthesia. But to go to select all districts that do not have physician anesthetists. And then when the policy is fully agreed, you may then be excused and you'll be able to do your membership in 2 years. And those who are successful will go on to do their fellowships whilst working in the various districts and regions, so that within a short time, we'll be able to generate the number of specialists in those orphan disciplines. In summary, there's no paid maternity. Yes, so if you exceed your house job, you will not get additional payment after that, unless there are really exceptional circumstances. So, of course, oh, okay, from senior to pra, okay, that's good. All right, so Adam says, please, is completion of the UK Foundation program recognized as equivalent of completion of housemanship and eligibility for permanent registration in Ghana? If you are not a specialist, we will treat you, if you haven't done, you have finished the foundation program, we'll come and then we'll evaluate it depending upon that level. You see, because we have foundation levels 1 and 2. And if you have competently completed your foundation year 2, the credentials committee will make a determination as to whether it will qualify you to move on as MO Otherwise, when you have not practiced at all and you finish fresh, and you are required to do housemanship for 2 years. And that is what has been happening. I've seen another question from somebody using a Galaxy. Doctor, is it not possible for doctors to do only 2 rotations of interest and remain in one? The number of house officers are increasing, and your office is obviously struggling to get place for supervised training for house officers. That is correct, that numbers are increasing, training slots are getting fewer, but the reason why we had the 2 years are still valid. So it is not going back to what we felt was insufficient. In fact, we have tried this, and this was well researched. In Nigeria, they do 3 months in ups and downs. We don't think that that will provide people with sufficient skills to be able to be independent practitioners. But what we are saying is that if the policy proposals we are having are taken, actually the better option is to make sure that in the 3rd rotation, it is rather in the discipline of your interest. So if your interest is in anesthesia, then your first 2 rotations cannot be in anesthesia. So once maybe you have done surgery and internal medicine, then you are interested in going to anesthesia, your 3rd rotation becomes, rather than becoming 4th rotation, your 3rd rotation becomes anesthesia. And then at the end of it, you'll be learning and preparing to write the primaries. At the end of the 6 months, you may pass your primaries. If you pass your primaries, you may not start the following day. So we want to make sure that you continue to have salary, because remember the salary scale is for 24 months before you become MO. So once you pass it, and the period between that and exiting the housemanship, if you haven't even started the program yet, but you have passed and you are enrolling onto it, you continue to work in that area of anesthesia in the 4th rotation, pending commencement. Otherwise, if you just say 2 years, it terminates. You write to specialize and you are not successful. You are not paid. What happens to people? Then they go into private. They now try to get a job. And if you get a job, would anybody allow you to leave the same year to go into training and those kind of things? So there are a lot of things that we are considering, and as many fertile suggestions as are available, we'll be inviting them formally. Doctor, can you please explain to us why foreign trained doctors who have passed their licensure examination and have been inducted have to stay home for as long as, oh no, once we induct you, the rest is administrative. The country, we call something financial clearance. And once the ministry, we will submit your names after induction to the ministry. Remember that as we speak, we always forecast 5 years of the prospective number of young doctors, new doctors that will be coming. So as part of policy, that is what we do. So as we speak now, if I were in a position, I will be able to show you the number of doctors we expect from each of our medical schools here and those who are foreign trained each year, and how many of them we think will be adding on. So they already have this. Then when we induct, we will forward the list to the ministry. The ministry would then have to forward that list to the Ministry of Finance to get financial clearance to say we are now ready to pay. But if the taxes haven't been collected and the finances are weak for the country, they tend to hold on to it until they are sure that they can pay before they give us letters. So the delay is not from the level of the regulator. It is our ability to pay and employ. Please, colleagues who failed their Part 3 examination and had to resit be allowed to join the upcoming induction ceremony if they have successfully passed the resit. Oh yes, we have resits usually will be from maybe those who finish UDS and KNUST around August, September, thereabout. So they were inducted, and those who had to do resits would have done them by now. So we induct them, and Legon resits and the other medical schools would then be inducted with the foreign trained doctors who will pass the February exam. So we try to make sure we induct those who are ready as soon as our schedule allows us. Hello, doctor. This is from Philip. Please, what's your take on the number of years a medical officer is mandated to work prior to residency commencement? In fact, it's one of the things we are saying that where we are thinking most cases will not require that district rotation again. So I'm saying that we use different approaches. If, for example, if we agree that the first 15, the top 15 candidates in all medical schools, you go after your second rotation, you indicate where you are interested in specializing, and your third rotations will be there and will progress you into specialist programs. Or I'm interested in a discipline that we need people in, microbiology, parasitology, anatomy, physiology, chemical pathology, and things like that, hematology. We will say, okay, you are not going to do district rotation. It's a priority area, and those are the ones we invest in. And so we are thinking that the whole mandatory requirement in the district may be made more flexible, if not completely dispensed of, depending upon what the general consensus is.
Registrar, there's another question here I think is also important. Is by FB Felix Boima. Dr. Divine, please, is there a compiled list of teaching or rental hospitals for first year house officers as you indicated? I am asking because there are limited teaching regional hospitals that can accommodate the newly qualified doctors. So you remember I asked you a question like that about the accommodation.
Yeah. So the first thing is that we have a list of accredited institutions. That's why we placed you. So if you check, first year house officers are placed in designated facilities. We have a whole list of them, and we call them teaching level facilities by our own characterization, depending upon the number of fellows, members in the facility, the level of and complexity of cases that they see, and then the conduciveness of the whole place for academic instruction and things like that. So we do have that, and we have districts where you must go and do the second year after your first year. So that is available. Somebody has said that I have a different view on your response on ladies enjoying maternity leave during house job. Even though it's part of their training, they also work, so they must enjoy the full benefits of a worker. Just to educate you, in labor relations, it's not like that. The incidence of rights of an employee depends upon the status of that employee, whether you are a permanent employee, you are on probation, you are on provisional register. There are limitations to what you can do. So maybe at a different, and it's important, these are the conversations that the leadership of the professional associations need to bring on board, so that a lot of us are aware as a matter of policy when we have rights and where we have privileges. And if you confuse a privilege with a right, it presents a problem in terms of how you position yourself. Please, is it permissible or legal to undertake postgraduate studies, masters in other fields while doing house job? No, house job is a full-time job. So you cannot be doing other things because house job is serious full-time business. And you can always do those things after house job. Here through somebody saying, Divine, please, I think you didn't fully answer the question Dr. Samuel asked. The second part was, those that will be inducted in 2 weeks, when would they be posted? I just told you that we don't post. The Ministry of Health is the employer of the house officer. And it is when the ministry says, I have financial clearance to pay, that we then place them in accredited institutions. So we cannot tell. When we induct, I tell you that within 3 to 4 days, the list of all the inducted practitioners are forwarded to the ministry. Then we have to follow and put pressure on the ministry through different means to get the Ministry of Finance to give us the go ahead that they are ready to start paying. Because we have learned from the past, and this whole arrangement is to avoid the situation where Young doctors are sent to work for 8 months, 9 months, our time, the whole year, without a single payment. And then that raises its own issues. People want to go on strike is unfair. The part that maternity leave isn't paid, isn't it against the labor law? That is a question that I will not ask. If you ask my personal view, first, I think maternity leave should be 6 months. Okay, and it should be paid. And I think it doesn't make even health, medical or clinical sense to ask women to do exclusive breastfeeding and expect them to be at work in 2 months or 3 months. And all the arguments I've been a labor unionist and things like that. But as to whether or not it breaches the law, that is a question that can be answered by the courts. Doctor, isn't it rather easier doing a facilitated membership in anesthesia rather than doing a diploma and then later coming to do another 2 years? That is what it is. First, there's nothing wrong with you getting additional qualification if you recognize the way the trend is going. What is wrong if your first year is such that you have an additional master's in anesthesia with that? The point I'm making is that it's not either or. So you are providing more opportunities for colleagues. As I followed the conversations that some people had in response to the fellowships coming with PhD, and I thought it is a great, step forward in the right direction. And people are asking, why must I do this higher than this? Look, if you talk about higher, you are comparing oranges and apples. How can you compare a fellowship with a PhD? The two are incomparable. But there's nothing wrong with adding value by having a PhD in addition to a fellowship. That completely puts you at a higher level and removes the excuse from people sitting in academia saying that if you don't have PhD, then you couldn't be vice chancellor, you couldn't be pro-vice chancellor, you couldn't be, provost or things like that. And there's nothing wrong, but there's still the option of those who want to do just only fellowship to be able to do that. So enhancing more choice and providing more pragmatic and innovative alternative is not a bad thing at all. And somebody said, what said earlier concerning the misinterpretation during orientation program. I would like to suggest that an alternative will be, we have moved on that. It is going to be difficult to get, I won't do it. We have enough regulatory experience to just avoid all kinds of, if you know all kinds of things. Those of you who followed would have seen publications in Graphic Daily Times that we arrested somebody claiming that if you pay money, you can have your results change and things like that. As a professional regulator, we are the custodians of the norms, the values, the traditions of this truly learned, honorable, and time-honored profession of medicine and dentistry. And therefore, we are very conscious about perception of a certain reputation. And we are very careful where to choose our battles without undermining the public confidence and trust in this noble profession of ours. So somebody is saying, sir, rotation, can we get an explanation as to why it is pediatrics and surgery or internal medicine and obs and gynae and not any other combination? Internal medicine and surgery. Oh no, people do internal medicine and surgery. What we are saying, the general principle is to get one medical discipline and one surgical discipline in a teaching hospital environment. So your medical discipline may be internal medicine and your surgical discipline may be obs and gynae. My, medical discipline may be pediatrics and my surgical discipline may be general surgery. So there's no requirement that a fixed combination be given. Please, how long does the council see the policy of a third rotation in preferred special field coming into force? We hope that when we are able to reach consensus, it will take effect immediately. Definitely by the third quarter of this year. Divine, please, is there a compiled list of teaching oriented? I've already answered that. Yes, there is. Some hospitals don't allow or give steady leave to qualified doctors to enter West African program, but rather force you to enter Ghana College, else your qualification will not be allowed. Is it a new sabotage? These are conversations that will be resolved at the larger forum, where we will, have these conversations between the colleges. And the good thing is that we are bringing the Ghana College and the West African College chapters together, and they are part of those who are going to be the solution. As we speak, the ad hoc committee had a senior official of the Ghana College being part of it to look at the solutions. Can we extend the scope of house officer training to our neighboring countries, since we have many fresh doctors but relatively fewer facilities? I realized that they have fewer medical schools compared to Ghana. And in fact, not only that, the fewer expertise. And therefore, you don't want to move away from a highly concentrated region to a low by osmotic movement. So we will rather that medical training is jurisdictionally limited, and therefore we have the ultimate responsibility to police the standards locally. And I think it is better for us to encourage our policymakers to invest in infrastructure, human resources, and logistics. Why shouldn't they fund a rapid program for members to do funded MPhils or MScs in physiology or anatomy or chemical pathology or parasitology or virology, and come in as lecturers and then rise through the ranks, and when they become fellows, senior lecturers, and then they do their publications and then they migrate. Or we can just have our standalone medical universities where requirement of PhD for us from the professional perspective is neither here nor there. I just indicated that for the foreign trained, I don't have my schedule here. You have to wait to pass the February and we'll communicate that to them. But definitely we will be conducting another exam in June, and therefore it is in our interest to get those who write in February inducted before the next group. William says, thank you for the interview. What should a medical officer who has served for 1 year in his facility, pass the primaries for laboratory medicine, and given admission into residency program, but I'm trying to get that part of the message. Just give me a minute.
So if they have questions, rather than putting them in the chat box, it's difficult to see the chat box. Put them in the questions and answers. And
answer component, then that helps. So let me go to the questions and answers. Okay, somebody says, okay, I think you asked this, isn't it? Writing the foreign countries like Australia, Canada, etc., require your training institution to be recognized. So I think I answered that. Answered Finn's own.
Registrar,
yes.
You are left with 5 minutes. I don't want to spend too much of your time so that we can get you back. Otherwise, you say these people are spending too much of my time. So if you can conclude the questions posted, I'm going to collate them, and then we will, some of them are, like you said, meant for colleges. So if we can get some of the colleges to answer, otherwise we can bring them back. They had already appeared on this platform and answer some of those questions. So if you don't mind to conclude, I know you want to talk more, but I know you may have some place to go. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I've just, I've just been signaled that the 4 o'clock meeting is coming on. So just to say once again that this is a wonderful opportunity, and the vision is something that is to be emulated and then, with all humility recognized. To indicate that there's a lot to adding value to ourselves as the top end of the best brains in science, the way medicine is pursued in this country, and that we can do just more than our clinical discipline. Remember that we are supposed to be the leaders of the healthcare sector, and therefore we must seek to add value in areas of policy making, basic leadership and management skills, areas of communication. A lot of the time, people come to us because they felt that the doctor hasn't spoken well with them. We need to get a grip. So those of us who may be interested in health policy and health system design and health system research, implementation, etc., please don't just stick to only the clinical disciplines. There are a lot of human resource gaps that we have. And that is why we instituted the specialist register. Please, those of us who are members, who are fellows, and we are not on that register, please, can we continually register our additional qualifications? And if they are already registered, indicate in the forms that we sent our willingness to be placed on the specialist register, and it is for free for the time being, and we'll place you on it. It will help us to be able to make a case. And I've seen somebody asking, yes, to be able to make a case for which residency program should be funded by the limited budget of government, and which ones can wait, and if you want to do them, you should fund them yourself. So that will help us discriminate in a manner that meets our needs. To say that as a professional regulator, we are being pragmatic, we are attempting to be as innovative as we can, but will require continuous feedback and support from you as either professionals or prospective professionals, that you continue to give us the support. And if you have any ideas, the way we could do things to improve upon the regulatory architecture and make the regulatory space better for all of us, please do not hesitate to contact us. But at the end of it all, remember that making a decision requires reflective analysis, reflective considerations. Remember that as a member of the noble profession, you are expected to be held to a higher standard. No matter what the issues are, do not show open hostility, disrespect to a colleague, more so when the person is even a senior practitioner in the open. You can have healthy exchanges, intellectually lays, but if you have a private, something seriously, you discuss with that practitioner in a much more collegial environment. I will say that there are going to be challenges. Some of you may want to go into disciplines that are not yet known, and it is normal to be uncertain and hesitant. But once you have subjected it to the will of God, and it is done in accordance with his will, remember that the output is always going to be great progress. And therefore, I encourage all of you to make use of this. This is not a one-off. And please feel entirely free to contact me or any of the senior members who are around us, because one of the requirements of the regulator is coaching and mentorship by consultants and members. And we will hope that this will permeate down, and the culture of peer coaching, peer learning, peer support, collegiality will grow. Remember, our profession is a profession under attack, at least in this country. And we all have a responsibility to ensure that we close ranks and redeem the image and reputation of the profession. I thank you all for the privilege to share this afternoon with all of us. And please, if you do have questions, I think most of us have my numbers. Those of you who don't have, you can ask from those who have. And senior brother Akamah can share my number with any of your people on their platforms, and they can contact me for one peer-to-peer engagement. I'm looking to mentor more doctors into this agency. It is our hope that we'll relocate the Medical and Dental Council and build a proper head office complex with a National Clinical Skills Examination Center of Excellence, which will be the first in this country. We hope that by the end of the first quarter or early second quarter, we'll be able to break the ground for this, what will be a monumental historic investment. It is your regulator, it is our regulator, and we need to work together to make it better. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Registrar. Thank you very much. I remember in 2010, when I applied to come to Ghana as an interventional cardiologist, the registrar then had me come for a panel interview because they hadn't seen somebody with interventional cardiologists in Ghana. So I came and met the 12 panel members. The late Professor Achampo was the chairman. And it was interesting because then I knew that your organization is credible. It is very, very deliberate and very detailed. So I think the openness you have given your organization is going to allay a lot of anxiety, especially with the collaboration you're having with the American colleagues, the British colleagues. Then it opens up the avenue for them to understand the processes that are laid down for them to come and practice in Ghana. It's not just walk in and practice. And those who are going for a master's program in clinical sciences, it is not equal to a clinical practice. Master's in cardiology doesn't mean you're a clinical cardiologist. Master's in internal medicine does not mean you're an internal medicine specialist. So if you listen to him, he said, if you're a specialist in China, you should have a license to practice in China before you come to Ghana to show your license. So going to China to do masters in cardiology doesn't make you a cardiologist, or going to Britain to do masters in cardiology doesn't make you a cardiologist. You should have a license to practice in UK. So thank you. You've really opened a lot of topics that we can deliberate on. And this has been very insightful. And I'm very happy you were able to dedicate 2 hours. We may come back to you if you can give us another time, because the questions are so myriad that we cannot answer all of them. And especially, we wanted your story, the fireside story. And I have always misplaced your origin. You know, you're close to somebody, but you don't know the person until today. If you realize I've been misplacing you for somebody else.
Yes.
And today I've got the details.
I noticed. You got the details because you have realized I'm not a Gunja man.
Yeah, you're not a Gunja man. You're not a Dagati man.
Dagati man.
I can't bring you a dog head. So
you can't bring me a dog head. It will fail. Yes. Maybe a bow and arrow will do.
Bow and arrow. Bow and arrow. All right. Thank you. And God bless everybody. And let's congratulate him. We keep on supporting you and all your effort. We'll pray for you.
Thank you so much. And just to thank you so much for finding me worthy to share my experience. And since I came, we have a counseling session. Just talk with the registrar, and then we can advise on what options are available. I myself, I'm looking to recruit more doctors into the agency. And I hope in the coming years, you will see that there will be more doctors here to support and reposition the council.
All right, thank you. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Take care. Send more questions. You have my WhatsApp number. You have my email number. Let me post my WhatsApp number. Take care. We'll end the program right now. Bye-bye.